Local news, national news, even feel-good news, delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Thank you, PC. I'm glad to be back also. As some of you are aware, my eldest son, and he is 34. I'm reasonably sure he's 34. Gosh, I hope I got that right. I know his birthday is this week, later in this week. But he's 34 years old, and he has a wife, and he has a son, and they live in a very, 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 very small town in eastern Oklahoma, rural Oklahoma. And as fate would have it, and I don't know how I feel about phrasing it that way, but as fate would have it, my son's son, which would be my grandson, was born with a heart defect, a heart ailment, and has had multiple open heart surgeries. He's just 10, and he's had multiple open heart surgeries. And a year or two ago, shortly after the pandemic, I had a discussion with my adult son about Make-A-Wish. You guys know what a big advocate and proponent I am of Make-A-Wish. And I said, your son is probably eligible for a wish. I was not wrong. He was and is. And they got here Wednesday night, and they have been hitting the parks every single day since, and it has been just an absolute thrill to have them in town. And I'm excited. We're going to catch up tomorrow. Even though I'm back here at work, I'm still going to catch up with them. I meant to ask you, Laurel, I probably should have asked you this off the air, but since it came up, do you think you could anchor for me tomorrow?
We'll talk about it.
Okay, because I want they're hanging out at Disney Springs tomorrow, so I'll do my show if you don't mind anchoring for me.
Deal, I can do that.
Mm-hmm. I had coffee in my mouth and I started to speak. That was a dumb idea. Anyhow, okay, so now pivot. Major media pet peeve, as Paul Harvey would say. I was going Paul Cross, Paul. What's his name? Paul Harvey. Yes, that's right. Shop talk. So I want to talk a little bit about the media, just for 2 seconds. ABC World News Tonight with David Muir. I like David Muir, and I like ABC World News Tonight, but they're very predictable and they're very repetitive. But one thing that they do every single night is they create what we in the industry call, they create a sense of urgency. You want to create a sense of urgency so your listeners are on the edge of their seat thinking, oh my gosh, I have to hear how this ends. I need to know all the details. So mark my words, in an hour and a half when David Muir comes on, I promise you, and you watch, I don't even know what their headlines are tonight, but David Muir at some point will say, just breaking or just unfolding in the last half hour, breaking news. We have new developments here in the last 20 minutes. He'll create the sense of urgency. So I bring that up because this just broke right as I came on the air. Literally, this broke at 5 p.m. I think our streaming is having problems again, for what it's worth. If you're on our video stream, I think everybody just got kicked off. But this broke literally at 5 p.m., so 9 minutes ago. Associated Press, students and teachers will now be able to speak freely about sexual orientation and gender identity in Florida classrooms. There has been a settlement. This is not a verdict. This is a settlement. This means that Governor DeSantis agreed to settle this case. So this case, some civil rights attorneys had sued Florida education officials on behalf of teachers, students, and parents, claiming that the Florida Parental Rights and Education Bill, the bill that was derisively referred to as Don't Say Gay Bill, they sued saying it was unconstitutional. But the case was dismissed last year by a federal judge in Tallahassee who said that they lacked standing to sue. Basically, they were saying you're in the wrong court. So the case was appealed to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, in the middle of that process of it going to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the state of Florida has settled the lawsuit. So this won't be going to the Court of Appeals. Governor DeSantis signed off on this. And remarkably, in a statement, Governor DeSantis described the deal as a, quote, major win with the law remaining intact. And again, this just happened. So I have not read the bill. I've not read this settlement. I can only read the AP summary at this point. Because we were literally, the show was starting before I saw it. So I haven't read all the details, but I find what I have read to be troubling and not at all a major win for the state of Florida. Because again, let me share this with you of what is included in this settlement. Students and teachers will be able to speak freely about sexual orientation and gender identity in Florida classrooms, provided it's not part of instruction. What? So teachers can openly discuss their transgenderism, their throuple lifestyles, their multiple partner lifestyles, gay, straight. I mean, I don't want straight teachers talking about their sex lives. And now this is going to be legal, and this is a win for the state. The AP article continues, other states use Florida's law as a template to pass prohibitions on classroom instruction on gender identity and sexual orientation. Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, and North Carolina are among the states with versions of the law. Under the terms of the settlement, the Florida Board of Education will send instructions to every school district saying the Florida law does not prohibit discussing LGBTQ plus people, nor prevent anti-bullying rules on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, or disallow gay-straight alliance groups. The settlement also spells out that the law is neutral, meaning that it applies to LGBTQ plus people, and it applies to heterosexual people, and that it doesn't apply to library books not being used in the classroom. Well, I'm sure, like with anything, there's details I don't have here. But at first blush, that does not sound like a win to me. I do not like the notion of teachers being able to talk to my kids about their LGBTQ lifestyles, particularly when it's outside of a lesson plan. You know, if it was inside of a lesson plan, at least there's an overarching reason, because it has to do with sex education or different lifestyle preferences or something that's educational. This is just freewheeling it. This is just a teacher walking in with purple and yellow and green hair and 20 facial piercings and neck tattoos. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but this them freewheeling it with the kids. I do not see how that's a win. Time will tell. Time will tell. What do you think? 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. I've kind of messed up the timing here as this just hit. It's too late to start the presidential pinger, and it's too early to begin these stories you missed while you were at work today. So why don't we take an early break, and we'll come back and try to squeeze in one or the other. Coming up next, stay with us here. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit, because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
If you were in our chat group that suddenly stopped, we've relaunched it again. Facebook seemingly kicked us all out at the same time. So we'll go for take two. Not third time's a charm. Third time is never a charm. We'll always try it twice. So if you were on the group, or if you'd like to join us in the chat group, you're all invited. We have TV cameras inside everybody's studios, and you can be able to see how the sausage is made. I will tell you, it ain't pretty. Sausage being made is very ugly. The whole process is terrible. But if you want to be able to see it for yourselves, just check it out right now. It's on the WDBO Facebook page right as we come on the air, as David Muir would say. We had breaking news that the governor of Florida, that's our guy, Ron DeSantis, has settled the lawsuit from the Florida teachers and classrooms and parents and students challenging the so-called Don't Say Gay bill, the Florida Parental Rights in Education. I will say that just for a word economy, Don't Say Gay is a lot faster to say than parental rights in education. I'm not being biased in any way other than word economy. It's easier and faster to say. Let's go to Leesburg. Brent is joining us here on the Joe Kelley. Hello, Brent.
Hey there, Joe. Good to talk to you.
Good. How are you?
Really good, really good. Well, I could be better without learning of that update.
Weird, right?
Please wait.
It is weird, and your opinion on it seems to be the opinion of majority of people, which begs the question: why are we making this change? What's the end game?
Yeah, why settle this? Why not let that go to court unless somehow Governor DeSantis had reason to believe that more of this bill would be stricken if it went to a full appeals court? I mean, Governor DeSantis is not a dumb guy. I mean, he was the guy that crafted this legislation in the first place.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yep, that's what I was thinking.
So he must know something we don't know.
Correct, and I worry as much as other parents do. I've got kids that are going to start going to school soon, 4-year-old, and I just don't think it's necessary to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, especially if it's not part of curriculum. That was what really threw me off, was that, if they were going to say, as long as it's part of classroom instruction, I'd be like, that's a stretch, but okay.
Yeah, but and then maybe, if parents want their kids learning that, but seems like it takes the choice out of the parents' hands.
Does indeed. I agree with you. Thanks, Brent, so much for checking in from Leesburg. We should appreciate you listening out there. 844-580-WDBO, or use the open mic and the WDBO app.
Here's a question, because I don't recall the full story, but are teachers able to talk about their faith, or do they have to be quiet about that? And, if they can talk about their sexuality, why can't they talk about faith or other aspects of their life that may be, positive and actually beneficial to society and to everybody?
So I like your question. I like where your head's at. I like where your heart is at. But let me kind of answer your question with a question. Do you want teachers sharing their faith with your students, with your children? I don't know that the teachers share the same faith that I do. And I remember once, I remember this well. Since I brought him up earlier, my adopted son, Joey, came home from high school one day. You know what? I think it was middle school now that I think about it. He came home from middle school and he said, "Dad, we have to give something up for 40 days. And I said, "I'm sorry, what?" He says, "Yeah, at school, they said you have to give up something for 40 days. Now, having been raised Catholic, I knew full well what he was talking about. It wasn't that I didn't hear him or understand the question. It was just incredulous to me that someone at school told him, who was not Catholic and doesn't practice a form of Christianity that sacrifices something for Lent, that someone at that school told my son he needs to give up something for 40 days for Lent." And I said, "Joey, who told you this?" Now I'm thinking it's going to be a social studies teacher, could be a coach, It was the lunch lady. The lunch lady was proselytizing my kid. Now, at the time, I can only be honest with you guys. At the time, I was a lost Christian. I was a cultural Christian. If you were to ask me if I believe in God, I would say yes. If you would have asked me if I believe that Jesus Christ was my Savior, I'd be like, what? What? Somehow, being raised Catholic, that part never got through to me. So I was not a good Christian back in that day, which isn't to say I'm a good Christian now. I just try harder and I understand what it means to be a Christian. By the way, our video's gone again. 2 times a charm. That's it. We're not doing a third time. So maybe we didn't pay our Facebook fare for this month or something. We'll go back and check our billing to make sure. So my question is, do you really want teachers sharing their faith? Because if it's a faith that you don't adhere to, then you're kind of stuck back in that argument again of maybe they should just keep their mouths shut and stick to, and with all due respect to teachers, but you're going down a path that is difficult to not start sliding down that slippery slope, in my humble opinion.
Just clocked out? Let's rewind. Here's what you missed while you were at work.
All right, there was something hinky going on with the Princess of Wales, Catherine. So she released a picture. I don't know if you know this, but it's Mother's Day in the UK. So she released a picture of her and her children, and several news agencies withdrew the image when they determined it had been manipulated. And now the Princess of Wales, Catherine, has gone public and admitted that as an amateur photographer, she says, that she tried editing the picture. And Laurel, did you see the edited picture? Did you see where people picked up on there was something weird about it?
I saw something about her ring finger, and then I just saw all the silly people photoshopping her in silly other locations.
So the what is her daughter's name? Charlotte?
Charlotte, yes.
And then what is her title? Duchess? Champion?
Best in
Best in show? Is that what you're writing?
I don't know.
What is it, Greg? What is the title of?
I just see listed as Princess Charlotte. So.
Okay, so Princess Charlotte is wearing a red sweater, and the line of the sweater has a weird hook or change in direction where it becomes her wrist. And I didn't notice it the first time I read it. I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And then somebody circled it, not like I knew where I was looking. But you got to look so hard to see that it was manipulated. But it speaks to, if she's going to edit that, what else did she edit? And there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on with the Princess of Wales. I refuse to go down that rabbit hole. But we ordered Josh to go down that rabbit hole for us earlier today because none of us wanted to do it. And he said there is a whole bunch of weird stuff going on, including that there are marital problems and stuff like that. Wow, here is an interesting story. Just happened. I don't even know the details yet. All I have is a headline, folks. A Boeing whistleblower has been found dead in the United States. Wow. That's not going to be weird or suspicious at all, is it? Boeing is only a gazillion-dollar company, and is it not worth at least the life of one random whistleblower? Come on. Boeing whistleblower found dead in the United States. Holy smokes. What a crazy world we live in. And by crazy, I mean, what a dreadful world we live in. All right, I'll have the presidential pinger. There's a lot. Y'all missed a lot in the presidential pinger. We'll have that for you coming up next. Stay with us here on The Joe Kelley Show.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
So I found a little bit more details about this Boeing employee, this Boeing whistleblower that has been found dead inside his pickup truck. This from the BBC. A former Boeing employee known for raising concerns about the firm's production standards has been found dead in the U.S. John Barnett has been working for Boeing for 32 years until his retirement in 2017. In the days before his death, he had been giving evidence in a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. Boeing said it was saddened to hear of Mr. Barnett's passing. The Charleston County coroner confirmed his death to the BBC on Monday. It's today. It said that the 62-year-old died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I see another report that he was found dead in his truck at a hotel in Charleston, South Carolina, after a break in depositions in whistleblower retaliation lawsuit. According to Barnett's lawyer, Barnett was supposed to do day 3 of his deposition in Charleston on what's called the Air 21 case. Air 21 refers to a federal law that provides whistleblower protection for employees in the aviation industry. The attorney said John had been back and forth for quite some time getting prepared. The defense examined him for their allowed 7 hours under the rules on Thursday. I cross-examined him all day yesterday and did not finish. We agreed to continue this morning at 10 a.m. They kept calling Barnett's phone. It would go to voicemail. They went to the hotel to check on him. They found him in his truck dead with, and the attorney writes this, with an alleged self-inflicted gunshot. For almost 3 decades, Barnett was a quality manager at Boeing. For 28 of those years, he was with Boeing in Everett, Washington, which is their headquarters. But then he was transferred to Boeing's new plant in Charleston, South Carolina, and that's where everything changed. That's where Boeing builds the 787 Dreamliner, and all things started going downhill. Well, there's much more to the story, obviously. This guy's death is certainly sus. The guy's right in the middle of testifying in a whistleblower lawsuit. Unbelievable. I mean, do you I'm not going to ask, but I guess I am. You really think this guy's going to kill himself in the middle of his deposition? That just, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it just seems too much of a coincidence that this guy suddenly ends up dead. I'd like to know whose gun it was, and if it was his, how long he's had it. All right, we do have, I got to get back on course here. You guys keep distracting me with all this breaking news. Why do you keep doing that to me? All right, it is time for the presidential pinger. Oh my goodness, I missed the presidential pinger. We have secretly low-jacked all of the presidential candidates. We got a lot to unpack here. Early voting continues in Florida. Has anybody voted yet? Paul, Laurel, Greg, Joe, anyone? No, none of us? None of us have voted yet. Early voting continues in Florida through March 17th. We're a day away from Georgia, Washington, and Mississippi. They all vote tomorrow. We're 8 days, so a week from tomorrow is Florida's actual primary day. That's March 19th. Early voting ends March 17th, the Sunday before. And on the same day that Florida votes will be Arizona, Illinois, Kansas, and Ohio. We are 22 days away from 5 states voting: Connecticut, Delaware, New York, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin. We're 239 days away from the general election. As I said, early voting is underway here across Central Florida. You'll find the polling places open in Orange County, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Osceola is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Seminole is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Let's take a look inside the Biden budget. It's a tradition as old as it is meaningless. Budget day at the White House. And yes, you are correct to note that Congress still hasn't finished passing the fiscal 2024 appropriations. So please excuse me snarking about the fiscal 2025 ballot. A large evangelical conservative group led by Ralph Reed intends to put more than $60 million behind Donald Trump in an effort to close the former president's fundraising gap heading into the general election. Now, you may not be aware, you may be fully aware of the hubbub surrounding Joe Biden's use of the word illegal to describe the illegal immigrant that is accused of killing Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. In case you don't know this already, The left disapproves of the words illegal and alien in any combination of words to describe people who've illegally crossed into our country. Now, the controversy started Thursday night during the State of the Union when MAGA Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene heckled the president during his address, telling him to say Laken Riley's name.
Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
A couple thoughts here. Having lost children myself, Biden always makes it about Joe Biden. And yes, Joe Biden called Laken Riley Lincoln. Not once, but twice. And what exactly was his point about, quote, how many thousands of people being killed by illegals? What point exactly were you trying to make there? Now, flash forward to Saturday. That was Thursday. Flash forward to Saturday. Joe Biden is asked about his use of the word illegal while standing under the wing of Air Force One.
Do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
Well, I don't regret it. Technically not supposed to be here.
So he says, I don't regret it. Technically, he's not supposed to be here. Now, flash forward a day more. Sunday, Biden sits down with MSNBC. At least he finally gave a media interview, but it was softball after softball. Jonathan Capehart interviewed the president and again asked about the use of the word illegals.
I noticed the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
So I find it interesting. I watched that interview, and that guy softballed it and made Biden apologize for calling that rapist and murderer an illegal. But he didn't apologize to the family for mispronouncing the beautiful girl's name. Sick.
Oh, but wait, there's more. Aboard Air Force One, Deputy Press Secretary Olivia Dalton was asked about the MSNBC interview that asked about the State of the Union. This is becoming comical, if not so tragic.
Interview with Jonathan Capehart. President Biden apologized for calling Laken Riley's killer an illegal. Does he feel like he needs to apologize to illegal immigrants for calling them what they are, or using the term illegal?
Well, first of all, I want to be really clear about something. The president absolutely did not apologize. There was no apology anywhere in that conversation. He did not apologize. He used a different word. I think what we should be really clear about is the facts. So, in addition to the fact that the president did not apologize, I want to make another thing clear. The president spoke directly to this in the State of the Union address not 4 nights ago when he spoke passionately about knowing what it means to lose a child and extended his deep grief and condolences to Laken Riley's family in front of the entire country in the House chamber. And beyond that, I think it's unconscionable that there are some people who are playing politics with this young woman's tragic murder, and particularly at a time when, let's not forget, House Republicans are standing in the way of a bipartisan border security agreement that is the toughest bill we have ever seen in history, and they're doing so because Donald Trump feels that the American people's safety is less important than his personal politics.
Clearly, Democrats and the lefts in the media are apoplectic. I bring you this maddening montage of malicious, misleading malcontents in the media.
The president is walking back a controversial term he used during his State of the Union remarks. Biden used the word, quote, illegal.
He used the term illegal.
He used the word illegal.
He used the word illegal.
He used the word illegals to describe people.
He did use a word that did bother people. Immigration advocates don't want to hear him use the word illegal.
Do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
I kind of jumped as well when I heard that word.
We normally don't use that word because people are not illegal.
To be clear, no human being is illegal.
Congressman Chuy Garcia saying he was extremely disappointed to hear the president use that word illegal.
Joaquin Castro has said this using that word and illegal, dehumanizing is problematic. What did you make of that?
That's probably true. He probably should have used a different word.
Like Joe Biden's ad libs in the past, this one kind of got him in some trouble, particularly with Democrats who don't use the word illegal, call undocumented workers.
Saying to the broad Democratic base, I hear you, I hear your concern. And I shouldn't use that word is a smart thing to do.
Yesterday, Biden attempted to rectify this by apologizing for using that word to describe an undocumented immigrant.
You used the word illegal, so you regret using that word.
Yes.
He understands or understood the damage that he caused, and he was very eager to make amends.
You may be wondering, why does this matter, right? It's just a word. Who cares? Well, his language matters. The words we use to describe each other matters. And unlike Trump, Biden understands that words can shape our reality and that words can have real world and dangerous consequences.
Lastly, Donald Trump took full advantage of Biden's boneheaded blunders.
When this monster showed up at our border, he was set free immediately under the program that Crooked Joe created. He got Lincoln's name wrong, calling her Lincoln. No. He got the name wrong, Lincoln. And when he asked, what about all the legal citizens who kill people? That's what he said. What about all the legal citizens? When he was asked, what about all the legal? In other words, making excuses. Joe Biden went on television and apologized for calling Lincoln's murderer an illegal. He didn't want to call him illegal. He apologized. He said he should have called him an undocumented, not an illegal, and he wanted to apologize.
That is our presidential panger.
Y'all gonna make me lose my mind. Up in here, y'all gonna make me go all
right, we'll get more of your comments. I know that there's a lot to comment on. And then Joe Biden released an ad today in which he calls out his own age. You'll hear that ad coming up.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know. Powered by Hard Rock Bet.
3. Emma Stone is now a 2-time Oscar winner. She won Best Actress for her work in Poor Things at the 96th Annual Academy Awards last night. Her first win was for 2017's La La Land. 2. The Pentagon says there's no evidence the U.S. covered up the existence of UFOs. The Department of Defense released a 63-page report on unidentified anomalous phenomena on Friday. It said investigative efforts determined that most sightings were the result of misidentification of ordinary objects and phenomena. 1. A social media video showing Mexican cartel members laughing about a deadly helicopter crash on the Texas border is getting some attention. Military officials have identified 2 of the people killed as National Guard soldiers from New York. They were on deployment supporting border protection operations.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
When you're reporting news, you're consistently reporting that this bill is called Don't Say Gay. There is no gay in a bill. There is no bill labeled Don't Say Gay. Why is that the number one thing you're calling it? Because it's not called that. It's called the Parental Rights and Education Act.
Yep. Totally aware of that. I addressed that just a little while ago. That adds nothing to the discussion about that. You're not breaking any new ground by saying that. It doesn't change a single piece of the law to bring that up. It is simply about word economy at times. It is faster and easier to say don't say gay than it is parental rights and education bill. And people are more likely to know what law I'm talking about if I say the don't say gay law. So that's it. There's no ulterior motive here. It is about economy of words and knowing that people will understand what it is. But if you want to parse words about it, knock yourself out. But we know what's in the bill. Actually, we don't now that the governor has signed a settlement about the bill that critics call Don't Say Gay bill.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, from the Bogan Munz & Munz WDBO Traffic Center. Auto accident? Choose Bogan Munz & Munz.
Looking a lot better right now on the I-4 westbound express lanes right before the turnpike as they've got both lanes open after a lengthy closure because of a vehicle fire. Still have that lane closed I-4 westbound as you make your way into downtown near the 408. Put that tax refund to good use at Refresh Computers, Central Florida's budget computer store. Visit refreshcomputers.net or visit the Refresh Computers Superstore in Longwood. From the WDBO Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. From the jazz age to the information age, WDBO has been there. Join us in saluting a century of broadcasting excellence. Happy 100th WDBO, the soundtrack to Orlando's history.
I'm so glad you're joining us, and if you are just joining us, we are following breaking news. This is a stunning story. A Boeing whistleblower who was currently blowing the whistle on the company's shoddy production practices has been found dead in his pickup truck of what they're calling a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The former Boeing employee is a guy named John Barnett. He worked for Boeing for 32 years until he retired in 2017. From 2010 till 2017, he was a quality manager at the North Charleston plant, which produces the 787 Dreamliner. He was involved in an ongoing lawsuit against Boeing and was set to testify in legal interviews relating to the case. He provided mountains of whistleblower evidence against the company in a lawsuit alleging that the company was deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on its production line. Per the BBC, he had also uncovered serious problems with oxygen systems, which could mean 1 in 4 breathing masks would not work in an emergency. He said after he got transferred from the home base of Everett, Washington to South Carolina, he had become concerned that the push to get new aircraft built meant the assembly process was rushed and safety was compromised, something that the company denied. He also said, I read this in a separate report, that the management team in South Carolina was more military-based than they were in Everett, and they had a different set of standards and different operating instructions in the military than they did at Boeing headquarters. He told the BBC that workers didn't follow procedures intended to track components, which allowed for defective components to go missing. In some cases, substandard parts were removed from scrap bins and fitted onto planes to prevent delays. He claimed that tests on emergency oxygen systems due to be fitted into the 787 showed a failure rate of 25%. He told supervisors about this. They refused to take any action. Boeing denies all of it. You know, Boeing, you can deny everything you want, but it doesn't take a fourth grader to sample headlines and realize that Boeing has a major problem. There have been a lot of Boeing problems. Just today, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, quote, just dropped mid-flight from Sydney to Auckland, injuring 50 people, all of whom hit the ceiling when the plane dropped. The pilot said that everything in the cockpit blanked out, everything. They lost all electricity in the cockpit. Everything went blank, and the jet suddenly massively lost altitude. And the report is that it's a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I'm sure it was. How many billions of dollars in contracts does Boeing have? How many billions of dollars in government contracts does Boeing have? Even out here on the Space Coast, go out to the Kennedy Space Center and see how many times you see the Boeing logo on the sides of buildings. Honestly, I'm feeling more like a conspiracy theorist every day, and it makes me very angry. It just seems so entirely unlikely that this guy who's been so dedicated to Boeing for his entire adult life is going to kill himself. In other news, I'm going to make a bet with you, my radio listeners. I'm going to wager with you. I'm going to play an audio clip of Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, who is the Senate Democratic leader. Chuck Schumer, longtime liberal. And I'm sure you could rattle off a list of reasons why you don't like Chuck Schumer, and I could do as well. But I'm going to bet you the cost of listening to the radio that you're going to completely agree with what Chuck Schumer says right here. I should point out, this isn't 2024 Chuck Schumer you're going to agree with. This is 2009 Chuck Schumer. This is 2009 Chuck Schumer when George W. Bush was president. This is the Chuck Schumer you're going to be like, yeah, I totally agree with that. I would vote for that guy. I would vote for this Chuck Schumer. I give you 47 seconds of 2009 Chuck Schumer.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally. Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple. Until the American people are convinced that we will stop future flows of illegal immigration, we will make no progress on dealing with the millions of illegal immigrants who are here now. When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration, which the American people overwhelmingly oppose. If you don't think it's illegal, you're not going to say it. I think it is illegal and wrong.
Don't you agree with that, Chuck Schumer? Can you even believe the things that Chuck Schumer is saying? I mean, he's spot on when he says if you say undocumented, that means that you think that it's not illegal. If I was Donald Trump, I would take that and make a campaign out of it. I would absolutely make a campaign out of that. And I would make a campaign out of Bill Clinton. You're going to completely agree with 1995's Bill Clinton.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Yeah, 1995 Bill Clinton and 2009 Chuck Schumer, well, they could be president and vice president as far as I'm concerned. Who wouldn't vote for them with that position? Oh, how the times have changed.
I noticed the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
Wow. How times have changed. The left used to be a moderate party, and now they're absolute on the fringe extremes. And I guess the same could be said about the right. But the left has I'm so embarrassed for what today's modern Democratic Party has become. By the way, Laurel, I have breaking news exclusively for Laurel. So this is just for you, Laurel.
Oh, boy.
Weezer has just announced that they're coming to the Kia Center on September 20th.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, I thought you would like that.
I saw them once here. It was fun. That was a good show.
Tickets go on sale Friday, March 15th. That's this Friday.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, it's to support their, celebrating the 30th anniversary of their legendary self-titled album, Voyage to the Blue Planet, Weezer. Weezer. Name one song from Weezer.
Oh, well, now you put me on the spot. I'm panicking.
Okay, then just sing it.
Beverly Hills. That's where I wanna be.
Really, that's Weezer?
Really?
That's Weezer.
Beverly Hills.
I like that. Oh, I like that. That's a good song.
Yeah.
All right, 844-580-WDBO. You can hit me up in the open mic and the WDBO app. Coming up, you still need to hear President Biden is using triangulation. He's trying to take the issue of his age away from his opponents by admitting that he's old, and his new campaign ad does exactly that. He admits that he is old. You'll hear it next.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
That Boeing story is absolutely insane. I think people should be up in arms about this. I think people should make a big ruckus because this is absolute corruption and it should not be stood for.
Well, I agree with you that it is troubling. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say corruption or anything just yet. I mean, is it possible that the guy who happens to have been the Boeing whistleblower, could he have actually killed himself, between one day and the next day of testifying? Is it possible? Yeah. Is it likely? I don't even know anymore. But it certainly stinks. It just stinks. Let's go to Mount Dora. Linda is joining us here on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm very good. On the subject of the dead person, I personally don't rule out the possibility that he really did off himself. And
I agree.
I have no knowledge. I have no knowledge of him. But I did have a friend, past tense, who was involved in a lengthy, rather intense legal battle with a major corporation. At one point he says, I said, if this ever becomes too much for me, I've done the research. I know how to end it. It'll be painless. A couple of years later, maybe it wasn't that long, it's like, this is starting to get to me. 6 months later, he was dead. He had overdosed. So even if the guy really did kill himself, in my mind, that would not necessarily leave Boeing off the hook.
Yes, I think you're right about that, and I hope you're right about that. I hope that this doesn't just end the investigation into Boeing. I hope that investigation, for the sake of everybody's lives, I hope that investigation does continue, because Boeing has had a lengthy string of failures and disasters in recent years, and something's up at Boeing. They used to be one of the most reputable companies in America, if not the world. Now, I got to tell you, I would think twice about stepping foot aboard a Boeing airliner, is particularly if an Airbus or something else was available to take instead. 844-580-WDBO, or use the open mic in the WDBO app. We're talking about the whistleblower in the Boeing trial, the Boeing investigation that is said to have killed himself, shot himself in the, shot him, it doesn't say where he shot himself, but shot himself inside, it does say where, it was inside of his pickup truck. But he's dead now, and he will not be able to testify any further. We're also talking about the Democrats from yesteryear had no problem at all calling illegal immigrants. But now it's a terrible thing, evidently.
Joe, that montage you played of Schumer, Clinton, and then Biden at the end, did you hear that part that Biden said they built the country, whether you call them illegals or undocumented? Quote, they built the country. Amazing.
Yeah. Slaves could not be reached for comment. If someone built the country, that is. We're also talking about the so-called Don't Say Gay law. See how easy it just flows off the tongue. So I've got a little bit more details on this now. If you're just joining us, maybe you just hopped into the car and you didn't catch this earlier, but we had breaking news right at 5 o'clock. We got word that Governor DeSantis had signed off on a settlement deal. So the Florida Department of Education is going to send out a memorandum to all school districts explaining that the law, the Don't Say Gay bill, the Parental Rights and Education Act, is not as restrictive as some schools have interpreted. Curiously, both sides are claiming that this is a major win. The general counsel for the state, thus the governor, said, "We fought hard to ensure this law couldn't be maligned in court as it was in the public arena by the media and large corporate actors. We are victorious, and Florida's classrooms will remain a safe place under the Parental Rights and Education Act." So here are some of the things that the settlement, again, this is not something that's going to be appealed. They settled this. Our governor shook hands with the teachers, school districts, and said, okay, we agree to this. Done. No more. So the bill does not prohibit classroom references to LGBTQ plus people, families, or issues, including literature, discussions with students, and academic work such as student essays. The law does not apply to library books that are not being used in class lessons. There's a double negative in that sentence, so I had to read it to myself several times to make sure I fully understood it. The law does not apply to library books that are not being used in classroom lessons. That means that if the book is not being used in classroom lessons, it, whatever it is, can be in the school library. So remember all those books with the graphic images of homosexual, heterosexual, self-sexual, all those images, those books are back in. They're all back in the library now, as long as they're not used during classroom lessons. How is that a victory again, Governor DeSantis? I'm a bit confused. And so anybody can, put their LGBTQ stickers back up, their flags back out. They don't have to remove any of these safe space stickers or anything else like that. They're all back. Schools can have gay, straight alliance clubs. They can have books with LGBTQ characters. They can have student performances with LGBTQ references and allow students to wear clothing that do not conform with their perceived gender identity. Oh, we're back where we started then. Cool. 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. For 100 years, we've been your voice, your source, your heartbeat. From the roaring 20s to the digital age, we've been there for it all. Happy 100th anniversary, WDBO, where history and headlines meet.
One of the things that made Bill Clinton an absolute master politician, and by calling him a master politician, don't confuse that with adoration or respect. I don't have adoration or respect for Bill Clinton, but I can objectively sit back and say, man, that guy was a master politician. He knew how to get elected. He knew how to schmooze people. He knew how to do and say the right things. And one of the keys to that strategy was something that they call triangulation. Now, you can certainly imagine what triangulation is just by the word, and you perhaps may already be familiar with this political tactic, but in case you're not, let me describe it to you. Triangulation is when you take your opponent's issue and make it your own. So if your opponent was, all right, suddenly our governor popped into my head. So if you had a big strategy that you were going to make fun of a candidate because they were wearing lifts in their boots, well, then you would get out there ahead of them and make fun of yourself and say, yeah, you're right, man. I could never reach the top shelf without the lifts, so that's why I wear them. I wish I was 2 inches taller, but it is what it is. Then you take the wind out of the sails of your opponent. You triangulate it. You steal their issue and make it your own issue. So Joe Biden is taking a page from the Bill Clinton playbook. Yeah, no, not that playbook. The actual political playbook. Yes. So Biden, knowing full well that he is being made fun of for not being a young guy, releases an ad campaign today called I'm Not a Young Guy. And listen to it all the way to the end, where they include at the very end a quote-unquote outtake.
Look, I'm not a young guy. That's no secret. But here's the deal. I understand how to get things done for the American people. I led the country through the COVID crisis. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world. I passed a law that lowers prescription drug prices, caps insulin at $35 a month for seniors. For 4 years, Donald Trump tried to pass an infrastructure law, and he failed. I got it done. Now we're rebuilding America. I passed the biggest law in history to combat climate change because our future depends on it. Donald Trump took away the freedom of women to choose. I'm determined to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again. Donald Trump believes the job of the president is to take care of Donald Trump. I believe the job of the president is to fight for you, the American people. And that's what I'm doing. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Can we do one more take?
Look, I'm very young, energetic, and handsome. What the hell am I doing this for?
Woo! All right, your thoughts. So Biden is calling out his own age, making light of it. Strategically, it's the right thing to do. Strategically, I think that's brilliant. He should do more ads like that where he admits, yeah, I'm an old guy, but man, with that age comes experience, and I've been around the corner once or twice. I'm not advising Joe Biden on how to conduct his campaign, but that's what I would do. I mean, you own it. Own that you're an old, hair-smelling, creepy guy that can't make it up a set of stairs without special shoes and shorter stairs. Just own that. 844-580-WDBO or hit me up in the open mic in the WDBO app. Meanwhile, I had this in my 3 big things you need to know earlier today. And Greg Rhodes, you are our official sports guy. Did you hear the story about the Kansas City Chiefs fans having their fingers and toes amputated?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So during that wild card game on January 13th in Kansas City, and didn't they delay that game by a day?
No, that game played the day it was supposed to, even though they knew it was going to be negative, whatever it happened to be.
It was the Bills game, I think maybe they delayed a day. But that was just because there was snow, not because of the temperature.
Right.
So now, all these months later, 2 months later, 3 months later, doctors at the hospital there, several hospitals there, gave information. The Research Medical Center didn't provide the Associated Press with a total number of victims, but they say it's treated dozens of fans with frostbite during that 11-day cold snap, including a number of whom who had attended the game in question, where temperatures dipped as low as 4 degrees below zero. One of the coldest games in NFL history, the coldest ever to be played at Arrowhead Stadium. Most of the injuries sustained involved amputations of fingers and toes, but said that several more surgeries may occur in the coming weeks and months as those kinds of injuries evolve. So they start at your toes and work their way up to your hand, to your wrist, to your elbows, to your... Well, I don't need to paint.
An anatomy lesson.
Yeah, I think you guys know how this works out. Is that not crazy? Yeah. Now, and then at that point, I'm not beyond admitting I was stoked about them playing a game in that kind of cold because I like the adversity. I like the difficulty that it would give to the players. But, the players are sitting on the sidelines with heaters.
Sure.
And they've got, heat packets and they...
Specially heated jackets and all these kinds of different things. And leading up to that game, we talked about it a little bit on the show. I thought that it was highly irresponsible that they were going to be playing this game. Not just as a Dolphins fan because I knew it was going to give us a disadvantage, but just the weather aspect of that. It's dangerous, and it's kind of playing out now at this point that we're hearing about all these surgeries.
I would have to say that in hindsight, and thus moving forward, I agree with you. I think that the NFL, and in particular the Chiefs organization, put themselves in a major liability situation by holding a game in that cold of temperatures, assuming that every fan would have, again, my concern was not the fans. I thought the concern was the players. The players are going to snap off fingers because it's just so cold out there on the field. Because probably on the field it was colder than it was in the stands anyway.
Right. Yeah, no, they were talking about how just like frozen that turf was. But again, like you said, they get to the sidelines and they're immediately greeted by propane heaters and all kinds of different implements that are able to keep them warm. Fans in the stands are just there in the in the freeze. That's it.
Yeah. And I know on the back of every sports ticket,
NFL, they have pockets there with the heat little things inside of them that they put their hands in, and that's not affordable to or accessible to the fans that are sitting there freezing. It's a good thing, too. With freezing your butt off would be even worse. I think if you had to have that amputated.
So then your back would just connect to your legs? That would be...
Exactly.
That would be...
Straight as a board.
Terrible.
Straight down.
That's my dad. My dad was built that way. I mean, his back just went right to his legs, and God rest his soul. I know the back of every sports ticket says, by coming to this game, you accept certain liabilities on your own. But I'm sorry, but losing fingers and toes to the cold, that's not a baseball going into the stadium. That's not a hockey puck, going over the glass. That is an irresponsible NFL and Kansas City Chiefs organization. What do you guys think? 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
If you know it's going to be negative degrees, it's up to you. I know in Florida, when it's 98 degrees, I'm going to sit by a pool. I'm not going to let the sun burn me up. So, no, I don't think Kansas City or the NFL should be held responsible.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of that same opinion now.
I can't even believe I heard you ask that question. Do you think it's the NFL's fault or whatever powers it be? That is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard you say.
Oh, well, come on.
I don't know about that.
I've said far more ridiculous things than that. I feel like you're not paying attention, quite honestly.
Those people who are losing their fingers and their toes, they chose to go to that game. There was no one forcing them to go. And you have to know what are consequences ahead of time when you're choosing something dangerous like that.
All right, so yeah,
now, you see, that's the part I disagree with. The NFL did force you to go because they didn't change the date of the game. They didn't change the time of the game. This is an NFL playoff game. People are going to these games. They're spending hundreds of dollars on tickets.
All right, counterpoint. Are these people then not placing greater allegiance to their sports team than their fingers and toes?
And they 100% are, and that's where the NFL has to step in and say, you know what, it's not worth it for you to lose your fingers and toes. Let's adjust this for you.
So the NFL should step up and say, you guys are not smart enough to make this decision on your own.
I agree.
We're going to make it for you.
So you're saying that they have to provide a safe condition for you to be at the game.
Exactly.
I think that's right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, thank you guys so very much. I'm Joe Kelley, and we'll be back with you tomorrow afternoon, 5 till 7 p.m. Thank you so very much for being a part of the show here on WDBO.
It's time to get your checking account to zero with free checking from PenFed. That's zero ATM fees, zero balance requirements, and zero time spent waiting for your paycheck to direct deposit because you can receive it up to 2 days early. Open your account with just $25 and see how big zero can be. Apply online today at PenFed.org/free checking. Early direct deposit eligibility may vary between pay periods and timing of payers' funding. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.